No Way Up is brilliant. It is intense, it is terrifying, it is emotional. Based on some ratings I'd seen online, I wasn't expecting that much, but I have to say, I was gripped pretty much from the start. It doesn't take long for anything scary to happen, and from that point on, I felt sick. I really did. And I have to say, it's pretty brilliant. This was released this year in 2024. It's directed by Claudio Fäh, written by Andy Mason. And we have a great cast. I won't name everybody, the list will be in the description, but I think for me, standouts would have to be Grace Nettle, who played Rosa, the only child in this, and I'll talk more about her in a moment. Also Sophie McIntosh as Ava. And it's about a plane crash, and the plane crashes in the ocean. And I will say before I go any further, there won't be any spoilers in this, but once I watched it, I did some Googling to see if this was realistic, if it was actually possible. And some people are saying yes, unlikely but possible, and some people are saying there is no way this would happen like this at all. So if anybody has any information on that, please feel free to share, but I will say take it with a pinch of salt. It may not be completely possible, it's unclear, but either way, I found it to be really thrilling, even if it might not be completely possible. The plane basically starts to fall apart pretty much as soon as they're in the air. It doesn't take too long at all. And the plane goes down into the water. And the film focuses on a group of people. None of them, well, some of them are together, but they're all kind of from different walks of life, all on the same flight for different reasons, of course. And they're all towards the back of the plane. And the plane is at a bit of an angle. Obviously, everybody in front is presumably not alive because they're fully submerged in water. But that part of the plane is not fully submerged in water, and this is the bit where I wasn't sure if it was believable or not. How quickly would it take that plane to fill up with water? I have no idea, and as I said, I did some Googling, and some people seem to say that it could be possible because of this or that reason. If anybody has any kind of solid information, I'd be really keen to hear it. But I did allow myself to suspend disbelief with watching this, and I just believed it was possible because I feel like that was the most enjoyable way to watch it. And it's a race against time, as either they have to try and find a way out before either the water goes up or the oxygen goes down. Maybe they'll be rescued. We see relatively early on that there is a helicopter trying obviously to locate them, but I don't know how clear it will be when they're fully submerged. The plane is quite far down, and it's so unclear what the final outcome will be. And of course I'm not going to say, but right throughout it, I had no idea if we'd have any survivors. And I was desperate to find out. I was hooked pretty much from the beginning. The characters are all really likeable, they're really interesting characters. Some of them we get to know a little bit more about than others, of course. And as I mentioned before, we have Rosa, who is the only child in this. She's going on vacation with her grandparents. And for me, that's where most of the emotion came from. At several points throughout this, I did feel myself welling up. It did get quite emotional, and it was very, very intense. I don't like being in water. I don't go swimming. I don't go anywhere near water. I don't even like being in the bath. I go in the bath, but I don't like it. For me, it's just not a relaxing experience. So I knew there was going to be something about this that would make me feel sick in a way that was really thrilling. Obviously, in a controlled environment, I think is quite gripping and quite entertaining. But also, being in an aircraft is very terrifying. I can fly. I'm not so scared of flying that I can't fly, but like a lot of people, it is something I'm scared of. And to combine the two, it is so effective, so powerful, so terrifying, and at times quite emotional as well. Really solid performances, and we have some amazing camera work as well. There are a couple of times when it's maybe a little darker, by which I mean dimly lit, and I'm kind of struggling to see, and at times I was even struggling to see which character I was looking at, because it was quite dimly lit. But that's a small chunk of time, and it didn't affect my overall enjoyment. But just if I'm to find a point of criticism, I feel like it could have been a little more brightly lit. And yes, one could argue they're underwater, but at the same time, the bulk of the rest of it, the lighting was absolutely fine. And I understand why it became more difficult to see. I won't give any context, but at the same time, I still wish that we were able to see more. It was atmospheric, but it was just a bit uncomfortable. But aside from that, I think it was absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed pretty much every second of this. It was completely unpredictable, for me at least. And the fact that it plays into two fears of flying and being underwater, and with some amazing pacing. There are so many films like this, not necessarily just with underwater submersion, but just films where a disaster happens and it takes forever to get to that point because the filmmakers think we need to have a lot of time setting up to get to know the characters. But we see with this film that we get just enough time to get to know them, and we get to know more about them as the film progresses. And I think this is exactly how to do it. This is the exact kind of pacing I want with this kind of film. Just a few minutes, maybe, I can't remember exactly how much it was, but I want to say it's maybe 10, 15 minutes at the most, setting up for an hour and a half film. And I think that that's pretty perfect. Is the film itself perfect? I'm sure there is room for improvement. But personally, I thought it was fabulous. I felt sick right throughout it. I had no idea which direction it would go in. And as a narrative, it's brilliant. It's definitely emotional at times. The pacing is fantastic. The performances are great. Some really great camera work, particularly when we're looking at things underwater. I thought that was, again, very, very atmospheric, and it made me feel really uneasy, but in a way, with a controlled environment, is really enjoyable. Do I recommend it? Without doubt. No Way Up is an absolute thrill. I really enjoyed it from start to finish, and if it sounds like your kind of thing, then I think it's definitely worth watching.